Welcome everyone. I'm Minni Jain with the Flow Partnership UK, a charity that works globally with communities looking at their water, their traditional ways of managing water in the landscape and creating water sources in the landscape. So we've been working together with wonderful colleagues and partners in Africa and setting up what we call the Water School Africa together. And you'll hear from my colleagues later on in the session as to the work that they're already doing very powerfully in Africa. So we titled our session Planting Water with a Water School in Africa. And those are very powerful words we found which inspired us to really look at who is doing community-based work in terms of water sources all across Africa. And the single most powerful figure who you'll hear more about from my colleague John later on was Zephaniah Phiri, who used those words, planting water. And that image of water being planted in the ground, recharging the aquifers so that it is then available for all life, for plant life, for microbial life, for soil life, for the atmosphere, for us, for it to be available there was a very powerful image, which we seem to be seeing a loss of when we see the degradation in the landscape that's occurring across the world now. You see a lot of drought, you see a lot of aridity, you see floods where there shouldn't be floods. So something in that balance of the availability of water is changing in our climate, on our planet. And with the water school, our thought was that we have across the world, we have many communities, rural and urban, but especially rural, who live in these remote regions, and they understand that relationship of water to the landscape. And how do you keep that water, the small water cycle, alive so that that landscape is lush and green? And a lot of it is to do with holding water in the landscape. So you hold it and then you plant it. And working in Africa, we've worked a lot in India. The Flow Partnership has worked a lot in India with communities and the waterman of India, Rajinder Singh, and their communities, how they hold the water and revive entire river systems. And then the thought went, then of course, surely that must be happening with other communities across the world. And of course, enormous amount of wisdom exists with communities across the world, rural and farming communities. So the Water School Africa came up with the idea came out of that. How can communities who are doing very successful water retention in their landscapes to manage both floods and droughts, how can that wisdom be shared between communities? This is for action. It's not academic. It's for real action on the ground so that other communities who are suffering from lack of or too much water can actually do something which is known to be successful and being done by other communities, potentially in their regions. So the idea of the Water School Africa was born, and then we slowly started working with colleagues and working with partners who are already doing phenomenal work with their communities in the different countries in Africa. So I will hand it over to my colleague in Zimbabwe, John Wilson, to take us through a little bit more about what's happening on the water scene in Africa, and then we will hear from our panel in due course. Over to you, John. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Minni. Yeah, so I've been working for around 40 years in the field that we're now calling agroecology. And water harvesting and holding water in the landscape has always been a part of that work. But for me, I really like the concept that Flow Partnership brought around Water School, because I think it really puts the emphasis on water. And I think the time is ripe, certainly in our African continent. I think the time is really ripe now to put this extra emphasis on water. As Minni said, that there's lots of work going on. There's lots of experience has been gained. Some of it goes back historically, some of it is more recent. But the last 30 years or so, that experience has been gathering momentum. And so this idea of the water school adding to that momentum and linking work that's going on the ground across the continent, I think has a great power to it. and the time is right for that. So we're starting organically in setting up this Water School Africa, and we joined forces with partners from across the continent, west, east, and southern, and we'll slowly grow that. So as Minni said, the work's very much about, it's about work on the ground and linking that and learning from that, but also linking at a level across the continent, people who are interested in this approach. So we're going to start. Unfortunately, Zachary was here from, this connection issue is difficult. So we'll come back to Zachary from Tharaka, because he was with us and then he had a problem with his camera. But now he's not back, is he, Minni?
No, he's not yet back. So
Unfortunately,
maybe
I don't know what's happened with that. So we can go back to him. So let's start with the Mwonde one. Now, I might have to present that because Mwonde have a problem with connection. So we'll give them a chance to present. So Mwonde Trust grew out of the work of Zephaniah Piri, just to give a little bit of background. He was an amazing person who basically, I think, illustrates the power of local knowledge. He wasn't a water scientist or anything, but during the War of Liberation in Zimbabwe, he was detained at his farm in the rural areas, and that's when he got looking at water and how water moved across his landscape, and he realized that everything depended on water, and he developed a very sophisticated water system and then started working with others around, and Mwonde grew out of that work and is keeping his work going. So are you able to link Daniel or Emmanuel? Alice Ndlovu was going to present, but she's not available, unfortunately. Let's just try with the Daniel. Can you present, or would you like me to do it? If you unmute and try.
Yes, we can try.
Okay.
John.
Go ahead. You've got 6 minutes from now.
Yeah. We are rooted in Maziwa, which is an arid community located southeast of Tshwane. We're in South Central Zimbabwe. So we support indigenous innovations here. Our work largely inspired by Zephaniah Piri, who redeveloped approaches to wetland at his home in Msipane, which is Tshwane West. And his design was mainly for ponds and other earthworks. So our name is derived from the Mwonde tree, which is a big tree, which is in these same arid regions, but surprisingly, this tree is evergreen throughout the year. It's associated with fruits, birds, and cultural life, even our cultural life. And it grows and thrives in dry places where there's water beneath the ground. Yeah, so our work is mainly based on the ground with farmer-to-farmer water harvesting trainings in Maziwa. And today we have pegged more than thousands of level contours, of rainwater harvesting ponds, of safety tanks, of water tanks, a lot of innovations around water harvesting on the landscapes. And in the 2013, Mr. Zephaniah Piri trained 30 locals, which were mainly comprised of females, and which are now comprise the major group of Mwonde Trust people who are the foot soldiers trained food harvesting in and around South Central Zimbabwe. Yeah, how it does our work, our strategies are very unique and they're very practical. One of the major strategies is farmer-to-farmer trainings. We do farmer-to-farmer trainings, doing demonstrations and follow-ups, where we do demos, where we peg, we do follow-ups to find out if people are doing it the right way. Because pegging water harvesting condos needs to be very cautious, because you may damage the land if it is not done properly. So farmer-to-farmer trainings, it's very important. The other strategy is link and learn visits, where we took other people who want to learn to other successful farmers. There, they gain stories they find out what people are really doing, and they did that, spread that work. Right. Another strategy is using music and drama. We have got some very vibrant group. Ourselves, we have vibrant group of people in the trust are great singers. We have also great actors. We use that to spread our work and catalyze and spread the water harvesting work. Yeah, we use a very modest tool in pegging the water harvesting structures. We use in-house and on the field. We use an A-frame, which uses local available resources, but it does what a machine can do, and it does the perfect work, perfect water, dead level water condos. So it's readily available. So we also have infiltration pit. This is one of innovation by Zachary. We also call them piri pits. They are found inside the condos, and they store water for a long period of time, even if the condos are dry. Yeah, dead level condo with the pits. So you can see there in the dead level condo, there are piri pits inside. These pits are usually spaced 6 meters apart, and they store water for a very long time. Right? When we look at our structures and their impact, you see there we have got some research we do, which is minor cross survey, which indicate an increase in access and availability of small complementary food items, and also increase in productive diversity, which in turn enhance resilience and the uptake of small and nutritious food. We also do water harvesting ponds that also include sand trapping. So sand trapping methods make sure that our ponds are not filled with the sand, and only water going straight in the ponds. Yeah, you see those are success stories of some of the people. We have built homes, 3-room homes, 5-room homes using the water they harvested. So it's very impactful. Some are doing also fish farming. And you can see these are gardens. People are now enhancing resilience through water harvesting, enhancing resilience through horticulture. Some are doing tomato farming. And you can also see there, it's quite dry, but the crops remain green because there is a water harvesting structure, which is supplying water through infiltration. And these farmers are winning a lot of awards in this part of the drylands. They are winning district awards and provincial awards. So we envision a future where we become a water hub. Like in the Southern Africa, we want to become a water hub where we spread our waterworks, where we spread when getting enough resources. And this will help our children through sustainable farming, food security, and environmental well-being. And we take it as a responsibility that we need to improve our landscapes. We need to store water. We need to plant water. As our role model, Stefano Pir said, we need to plant, grow, and take care of water. So this is our vision. Our vision is to become a water hub and improve the farming systems to make them sustainable. So with water harvesting, the future is so bright. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. It's so exciting for me to hear this work continuing. And I was lucky enough to go to Majiwa in November. And I'm just amazed at the depth of knowledge amongst many, many farmers, the way they understand water. I managed to visit a couple of them. They have this incredible understanding of how to manage water, because water, it's fairly complex, but they understand the principles. And Mwande, really, I've seen many organizations, particularly in East and Southern Africa, I've worked with, and Mwande really are a leading organization in this work. And we hope through Water School Africa, we can give them a much bigger profile that they deserve. Thank you, Emmanuel. We'll go on next to, we're going to go to West Africa because we're still waiting for Zachary to join. So Tsuamba Bourgou is going to present some of the work that Groundswell is doing Groundswell is a partner for the Water School Africa in West Africa, and some of you may know them. They've become fairly well known, working in, I can't remember, 4 or 5 countries in West Africa, doing innovative and piloting work. And so they're perfect partners for us in the Water School Africa. So over to you, Tsuamba. Bienvenue.
Okay. Merci. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to share our experience in water harvest and management for agricultural production. As you can see, it's a collaborative work by Groundswell International and its partners. Agricole is in-country partners in Senegal, ANSD in Burkina Faso, SICOD is in Ghana, and Sahel Eco is in Mali. Next, please. So what is the context? Most Groundswell International and its partner working areas, farming system is characterized by a strong dependency to rain. Because of that, agricultural production fluctuates alongside the rainfall, which is nowadays erratic. Rain start and end dates are more and more unpredictable, and there often are sequences of drought, sometimes followed by flood in the same season. Because of that, most farmers' households face food insecurity, which increase their vulnerability. Next, please. In addition to the rain shortage, there is a poor management of the rainwater, which limits the food production system ability to cope with the situation. In response to this, Groundswell International and its partner in the dry areas of Burkina Faso, Mali, Senegal, and Ghana promote some agroecological innovation that have proven to be effective in farm water sound management. These innovations are mainly Zai, half moon, and storms. Next, please. This is an example of a farmer managing his farm with Zai pits. Next. These are the half moons. Next. Stone bands. Next, please. So this technology increases soil water holding capacity and positively impact crops development and farm yield, as shown in the next slide. So you can see a farm managed with the half moons in a barren land where you can see any weeds or grass apart from inside the half moons. And as the crop size tells, it's very effective. Next, please. So sometimes there is rain, no rain for a good deal of days in the rainy season, and crops still suffer in areas managed with above mentioned technologies. And farmers often complain that only 1 or 2 additional rain will have permitted their crop to get fully matured. This is why Groundswell International and its partners started sensitizing farmers, especially in Mali and Burkina Faso, to try big air water management works like rainwater harvesting basins. And below, you can see one farmer, Lanconde Francois, one of the farmer innovators in Groundswell International intervention zone, who dug water management ponds that help him fetch water and irrigate his farm during rain shortage time. Next, please. So here we see the farmer, Francois, harvesting his vegetable eggplants in his garden near the water harvesting basin. Next, please. So the effectiveness of the rainwater harvesting system for agricultural production and household income led Groundswell and its partner to continue encouraging farmers to adopt and adapt it to their own context. Several farmers who dug water harvesting basin testified that some of their neighbors, after witnessing their benefits, and for some of them, after having also benefiting from it, are now interested in digging their own basins. Apart from Francois, several other farmers tried it in various sizes and all have experienced increase and diversification of production and revenue. Next, please. In conclusion, as explained above, rainwater harvesting basins are very beneficial. Therefore, Groundswell and its partner are committed to continue motivating farmers and communities to manage them. And we are looking for locations in our countries and beyond where farmers are applying the same principle of water harvesting and utilization for agricultural productions through the same or through other scalable technologies for experience sharing and inspiration. Together with other interested stakeholders, we are working to raise more funds to support partner communities, improve and extend its implementation in their areas. Thank you for your attention.
Great, thanks so much, Tsuamba. And we're really looking forward to seeing that work, your work in West Africa really spreading. So we're going to go now to Walter Mugove Nyika. I've known Walter for 25 years now, and during that time he's been working with schools, initially in Zimbabwe on a program, the whole school design with water harvesting at the center, and then he led the development of Rescope, which is a regional program working with schools in 5 countries in East and Southern Africa. So he's huge experience with working with schools and in permaculture and so on. So Walter, over to you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, John, and greetings everyone. So Rescope is a network of organizations that work with communities using schools as entry points. We are in Zimbabwe, Malawi, Zambia, Kenya, and Uganda. And in these countries, we have developed an approach that we describe as the whole school approach, meaning that we work with multiple stakeholders in and around the school. And also we use the whole area that belongs to the school as an area for demonstrations of rainwater harvesting structures, as well as other agroecological practices. So we have developed a step-by-step tool that we call integrated land use design, that we use to help school communities to redesign their land so that they plant water on the land, and then they benefit from that water in terms of producing healthy organic food, especially focusing on needs of the young people, the children that are in school, who are also the future leaders. Next slide. So schools, we see them as being very unique places where the future and the present meet. So schools are an opportunity for intergenerational learning, where the elders in the community have an opportunity to share their wisdom, especially on rainwater harvesting with the young people who are in school. And so we use this tool to connect the young generation with the wisdom from the past. So we have 5 steps in this process, which begins with reconnecting with the past, with nature, and with culture. So in this first stage of the process, the elders share on the water situation that was there in the past when people used to work with the water cycle so that they had access to clean water through springs and clean rivers and streams, so that the young people realize what has been lost along the way. And once the young people and the other stakeholders have an understanding of where their community is coming from, they move on to the second step, which is analyzing the existing situation. So the school community looks at current situation in terms of water access, the challenges, the potential resources for rainwater harvesting on the land, and making use of the existing structures such as buildings, classroom blocks, as the potential water tanks that are on the land. And then once they have the understanding of the existing resources on the land, the community then looks into the future. They are encouraged to dream big. They dream of a future of abundance in terms of water resources, among other things. And once they have clarity on this future, they then move on to the next step, which is to redesign the land using the existing resources and turning current challenges into opportunities for planting water on the land. And with this integrated kind of design, the communities then come up with a work plan which they implement together. So the parents, the children, the teachers, they work together to implement a plan for improving water access, for harvesting rainwater, so that the landscape can have access to abundant water going forward. Next slide. So some of the structures that they use, so we see there on the left, participants at one of the schools digging swells or the dead level contours that I've had earlier, so that starting from the highest point on the land, they can sink the rainwater and reduce loss of water through runoff, and promoting a lot of infiltration so that the groundwater store is recharged, the water table rises, and the plants that are planted on the land can make use of this water that has been planted in the soil. On the right there, you can see the same dead level contour ridges or swells. Then also water-loving plants like bananas. You can see that they are planted in sunken beds, which trap water so that the water can have another opportunity to enter the ground. Next slide. The impact of this is immense, because the schools can then demonstrate to the whole community the food forests that benefit from this rainwater harvesting. And as a result, children get access to a wide range of fruits, vegetables, herbs, spices, and staple crops as well that are grown within the school grounds, so that the farmers, the parents, can gain confidence to practice similar approaches on their own farms when they learn by doing it together with their children on the school grounds. And you can see the abundance that result from this work of planting water in the land. Next slide. So we then have, as a result of this work, children practicing some of these skills in their home gardens at home, and then parents also taking these skills up at home and planting water on their own farms, and the teachers become local resource persons who support both the learners and the farmers in terms of their needs, in terms of rainwater harvesting and other agroecological practices. Next slide. So as with everything, we do face challenges, and the major challenge that we have seen is that of inappropriate mindsets, where people's worldviews are not supportive of these approaches of working with nature, regenerating landscapes through planting rainwater in the ground. However, we've learned over the years that by working together in a participatory way and in a way that is inclusive, we find that these challenges are eventually overcome, and we get very good demonstrations and very good practices being embedded in the school communities. And another significant challenge is that of poorly managed animals destroying the planted areas in the schools and in the communities. We, however, have learned that through living fences, investing in living fences, this challenge becomes less of a problem. And we have also seen children who have acquired these skills in the schools that we have worked with, becoming parents and farmers in their own right, and then practicing what they have been learning at school on their own farms. So it has been a richly rewarding work that has created a lot of interest, and there are a lot of school communities that are interested in this work in Eastern and Southern Africa. Thank you very much. I will leave time for questions so that we can have a discussion on this. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Walter. Years and years of experience there that we can use. So Zachary Makanya from Raidep in Kenya, Tharaka Nithi County in Kenya, has not been able to join. It's a bit of a mystery because he was with us, but these things happen, unfortunately, the connection problems. So we're going to go through the slides. I've been there, so I'll try and say something. I wouldn't say it nearly as well as him. So just a little bit of a background. So the three organized partners that are presented already are already doing quite a lot. Raidep has been working in Tharaka sort of 15 or so years, but they're now, Zachary has returned to his roots. He used to be the coordinator of Pelham, Kenya, and he's now gone back to his home area and is leading Raidep, and they're going to go in a big way into water because of the situation in Tharaka. It's lower down from Mount Kenya, and they have a very tough topography there. So the Water School Africa, effective water management, so re-energizing efforts to increase community and ecosystems resilience. So let's go to the next slide. So these are just some. RIDEP has a center where they train farmers in Marimanti in Tharaka, and there you can see in the top middle one the river, one of the rivers coming off Mount Kenya. So there's a lot of potential water, but much of it is being lost down the watershed because of current practices. Next slide, please. These are just slides from, so there are examples of the kind of runoff water that Tharaka and its topography faces. The brown waters that Zachary is talking about, the dreaded brown waters that we see far too much of these days. Next slide, please. And that's, I mean, I've been there, some of the most, I think Lesotho and Tharaka have this similar size gullies. Huge gullies have formed there, which really are a symptom of the problem. Next slide, please. So here we have, I'm not sure exactly which slide this is, but some terracing going on there and managing to hold water in that way. I think let's go to the next slide. So, yeah, that we're seeing an example of a landscape that's well managed with water. And some of the work yeah, they are doing, sorry, I shouldn't have said they're not doing any work yet. They're doing some work around catching water in tanks, in ponds, as you can see here. So the work that they really want to introduce is to learn from farmers in neighboring Machakos County, where they are being very successful in doing sand dams as a way of at least making use of that runoff water. So they're going to work with those, they're going to have exchange visits facilitated by the water school to learn about sand dams. So that's just a brief few slides, at least you've seen some slides from Tharaka, and apologies from Zachary for not joining us. So I'm going to hand over to Minni, back to Minni, to lead a discussion and open it for questions.
Thank you, John, and thank you all our panel, and John, you rose to the occasion in terms of taking over, talking a bit about the work of Zachary, though of course it would have been wonderful if Zachary had been able to join us. Our four partners, these are initially who we are working with, because as you can see, there is a wealth of experience, knowledge and wisdom, and actually really working with communities, starting from the older generation to the middle level generation and schools. So that bit is really crucial, that we start young. We don't look at education as not just rectifying what has not been happening in the last few years, but also how do we train future generations in this work of managing it effectively and together with communities, together with the communities being the operative word. So what we can now do is, we've been very lucky in that we've been given another half an hour to carry on the discussion post our time of 1:45. So all those who are watching us, do remember to look on the link which will be posted on the crowdcast, so you can join us in the session over here. And in the meantime, what we could start with a few questions, if you have questions in the audience, and then carry the discussion on from there. All our four panelists are here. We are here as Flow Partnership and part of AFSA as well. So this work is there, looking at before we can actually grow food, before we can have healthy, happy communities, before communities feel distressed with the state of their landscape and migrate, before all that comes the work of keeping the water cycle and your landscape healthy and full of water, and how our four partners have been doing that, and how that knowledge and wisdom of communities can be shared with communities on the ground is what we're exploring through Water School Africa. And we also have at the same time, I'd like to add over here, the Water School Africa has two expressions. One is this working with our partners and potential future partners who have interesting, successful methods of actually doing action on the ground and changing the landscape in terms of too much or too little water. But we also have an online forum once a month, once in six weeks or a month, where communities come and present their work, their successful water retention work, its impact, the kind of structures that they have to other communities. So if any of you are interested in joining that session, these are all free sessions. If you're interested in joining that session, do send us an email, at waterschoolafricalinks@gmail.com. I'll post it in the chat so you can get the email from there later on. And it's also there on the opening slide and will be there on the closing slide of the Water School. Or you can write to any of our partners and we can get you onto the forum. So, Benjamin, is that possible to have some of the questions that might have been coming from the crowdcast to any of our panelists who are working in this field in different countries in Africa?
Well, so far, as you can see, maybe on the Google Sheets, that's I think you have the link. There is only one question there. Can you see it?
I can't really.
Can you see the question?
Okay, if you can post it in the chat.
Well,
does Muande work through partners besides working with farmers? I've got that. Yes. Daniel.
Yeah.
Daniel, that question is for you. So the work that the Muande Trust does, do they work through partners in addition to working with farmers? Are the basins sealed? If so, how? Would you like to take that on, Daniel?
Yeah, Muande works with partners. We've got a partner in Zambia by the name Tikva. And also we mostly specialize with community farmers. The farmers who do their work daily on the ground. Yeah, but also we are heading to a water school partnership, which we think that one might be more viable as compared to what we used to do in terms of partnering.
So there's a follow-on question. Are the basins sealed? And if so, how? And are you able to have experience sharing in local languages? Daniel?
You're on mute.
Maybe I can come in on the on the two questions also.
Thank you, Walter.
The last two questions. So yes, we always encourage mulching or ground cover as much as possible. So sometimes in these basins, we encourage farmers to plant waterland plants like bananas or pawpaws. So once they do the planting, they need to mulch so that the basins are largely covered by this mulch, which also becomes a mini compost to feed the plants that are growing inside the basins, also around the basins. So mulching partly covers these basins. And then in terms of local languages, a lot of the strategies that we use are actually part of the local wisdom. So for the farmers, therefore, especially the elders in the communities, this is something that they connect easily with because it's part of the traditional practices that were there, that were inherited from ancestors. So these practices are very, very easily shared in local languages because they are part of the traditional wisdom in many of these communities. So when we work with the communities, the elders connect very, very quickly with these techniques, and they are able to share and to explain in the local languages to the young people in the same community. So we do work with local languages, and we also make use of the gray-haired libraries that are in these communities, the elders who hold a lot of the traditional wisdom that is so valuable in this work. Thank you.
Walter. That you've hit on the words traditional wisdom, and that is something which really has been an inspiration behind the work we've been doing with communities across the world. So there, the language is, the language you speak is secondary. What's more important is the language of the landscape. And our ancestors lived in small communities. They knew what they were doing in terms of where they needed to hold the water or where the water was coming from too much. And there was a language between them and the landscape that was spoken, which was passed down from generation to generation. And in the work we found in different countries, that language is the same. That language of communication with the landscape and how to keep it healthy and how to keep that water in the ground, how it's recharged, how to stop it from flooding downstream, how to keep it from running away and use it during the summer months. So that language is resonant with communities across the world. It's as our colleague Rajendra says in India, it's just common sense. If you live on the land and you work with the landscape and you know what the seasons are and where the water comes and how it comes, if you use your common sense, you can see the flow pathways of the water, you can see where the water is running down more, you can see where it's running, and you have the ways your ancestors held that water. So sharing that becomes far easier between communities. And then, of course, local languages, the questions that come, then in that local languages, that there is a semi-permeability between communities where that understanding takes place. I'll stop there, but a lot of just to highlight that a lot of the methods that the water school partners and others who are coming into understanding what you can learn through the water school, the online especially, are traditional methods that communities can do very simply, very easily. You can test them, you can try them, and you can take them on further to revive your landscapes. John, would you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of link to what you're saying and to that question about are the basins sealed. So it all depends. Most of the water harvesting work is about getting the water into the ground, because water in the ground is productive. Water running along the surface of the ground is generally destructive. So a lot of the work is about creating what Zephaniah Piri called this marriage between water and soil, so that water sinks into the ground and seeps underground and benefits everything further down in the landscape. But if, again, in managing your particular landscape, and I think of Zephaniah Piri's farm, at the lower end of his farm was a kind of wetland where the water table is quite high, and he kept recharging it with that water being sunk into the ground. And then those heavy soils are kind of self-sealing. So those basins are sealed, and that's where people keep fish and do all sorts of activities related to holding the water. But then there may be small dams, and then you want them to be sealed, either self-sealing or you do some clay lining of it. It all depends. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Yeah. Another question for you, Walter. What tools are most needed for the work with schools?
Thank you very much for that question. So when we work with the schools, because of the whole school approach, we basically need the basic gardening tools, basic farm tools that are found in most communities, because what is important is to plant water in the soil. And there are various structures that need to be put on the land, such as the swells and the pits and the mandala beds. So basic farming tools like hoes, picks, shovels, as well as tools for cutting grass and transporting it for mulching purposes. So basic farming tools. And I maybe will take that opportunity to say that we are mindful of the need to protect the children from child labor. And so with this whole school approach that we take, when we've got difficult tasks that need to be done, the parents come in to support the schools in terms of making sure that the structures are made, and then the children can be engaged with the more light work, such as planting and harvesting, whatever is planted in these demonstrations. So yeah, this is a very low input approach, which relies on locally available resources. And the main input is the skills, the empowerment of the school communities, so that they can be able to use available techniques and apply them in their own situations, share these, and also sharing the necessary seeds so that the landscape can be more productive and the benefit from the water that is planted in the soil. So basic farming tools are what we need.
Thank you. Here's another question. How do you use different media to share positive ideas, and what works best to spread ideas if face-to-face is not always possible? Would any of our panelists like to take that on? Walter, Tsuamba, John?
Yes, I think we're coming out of the COVID-19 situation. I think we become really empowered in terms of using a variety of media for this. And especially in terms of rainwater harvesting, we have found that pictures and short videos of the making of the rainwater harvesting structures, such as swells, have been quite useful. And these are easily shared on WhatsApp, so that yeah, the communities can benefit from this exposure to the techniques. So so the sharing has not always been physical. And also talking of other media, we have found it very useful to have field days as a technique for raising awareness, and also having farmer learning on some of these techniques. So field days and community seed fairs, and also community radio stations, community media houses have also been useful ways of sharing about this work. So yeah, we have become quite conversant now with using a variety of media in order to spread this work within communities and between communities.
Thank you. Tsuamba, would you have any? Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. As the former intervener, we also, can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly. Please carry on.
Okay, so we also use different media to spread the work we are doing. For instance, the image I just shared was picked from a video made, the video that has been developed by young, what we call young storytellers. Because in our system, we try to involve young people in what we are doing and training them on how to make videos, and that will help them be aware of what we are doing and also help them see how important it is, and give them also a view of the opportunity that they can seize in the agricultural work. So they make the videos and we share the videos with universities, with adult other professional training centers, also at school, and above all within the communities. When you film a farmer from a community and you go back to that community and you show the video, it's something exciting for them and stimulate others to just come and tell you, oh, this is what you think is the best in our community. Come and see my farm. It's better than what you have filmed. And others say, okay, next time I'm sure you will come to my farm because I will beat that one you have been filming. So it stimulates competition among farmers and it helps spread the work. Another way of doing it is to put the videos in their phones, and they can go everywhere and share it within the communities. And lastly, we also share it, we do radio animations. I mean, to have people discuss among themselves through radio sessions where they can share what they did and what the benefits are. So these are the 2 or 3 ways we use to spread the work. And I would like to take the opportunity also to answer the question about sealing the ponds. I think we have different purposes according to the farmers. Some seal them, some others do not seal. And depending also on the wealth of the farmer, they may have means to do so, and others do not have means to do so. We are encouraging everybody to undertake the initiative and adapt it to his context. So we can see different way of doing it in our area, in terms of size, in terms of sealing or not sealing, in terms of using the purpose, maybe for agriculture or livestock or domestic usage. Thank you.
Thank you, Tsuamba. At this point, we can take a little pause because we've been very kindly given an additional half an hour to continue our discussion in this Zoom room, and it's technically we need to wait for others to join into the Zoom room as they're coming in from the crowdcast. So people who are in this session, do click that link which has been posted in the crowdcast to join, if you want to continue the discussion in this session, and we'll wait for you over here. So don't forget to click the link to join in. Thank you. Benjamin, I think you'll have to let them in if you're the host.
Okay, I will.
Thank you. Mhm. Are there people coming in?
So from now, I think Jad is still the host. But I will see what I can do. But I have already shared the link.
Yeah. Well, we can carry on, and if there is any, I guess if the if there aren't any able to join in, then we could close the session. What do you think, John?
Well, yeah, I think if no one else joins, then we obviously close the session. Apparently, someone told me, I sent on WhatsApp and said there were 4,203 people on the crowdcast. So there were quite a lot of people there. But maybe they've got a program and they're going off to other sessions now.
Yes.
In mind. So here it looks like some are coming.
I think they're already joining.
Yeah, there's some joining.
They're already there. Yeah, some are already joining.
But that's quite a figure of people on the
From across the world.
ORFC obviously really reached out if they got, because I presume there were other sessions going on at the same time as this one. So if there were 4,203 on this one.
I wonder if that's the total figure, John, because I think Philip had logged in earlier in the morning to another session and it was similar, and there are parallel sessions going on. So
maybe that's the total figure. Yeah,
it sort of flips between yeah.
Anyway, we can have a nice cozy chat because there's just a small number of us now.
Yes. So I think we'll open the floor to welcome to those who've joined us on the in the Zoom room, and we can carry on the discussion about how do you share these community methods widely so that the landscapes of the world can regenerate and revive through the work of local communities. If anyone has a question, either raise your hand or put it in the chat. And if there's any particular thing you would like to talk about within what we've shown you, or there are questions regarding the methods or the communities or the water itself, don't hesitate to ask the question. Put up your hand or unmute yourself and ask the question, or put it in the chat and we can ask it for you. What I could add to in the previous discussion that was going on about we were talking about sharing and what other media do you use to widely share these methods. One very crucial thing that has happened, which is almost as a result of the pandemic, is that widely the internet has enabled a lot of people to come online to a lot of events and sharing events or media, work like this across the world. So even, for example, with the Oxford Rail Farming Conference, we have people joining in from all parts of the world. And my colleague just told me that there was a figure of 4,000 odd people who have joined in from different parts of the world to the different sessions that are going on. So that in itself enables the knowledge of these kind of initiatives that are going on within communities or people or groups or organizations across the world, to know that there are people who are doing this kind of work. So that's enabled a lot with internet sessions being open to public. That's enabled a lot of work to happen. As part of the Flow Partnership, we had also started, when we started the Water School Africa, one of our thoughts had been that if we work with organizations who are doing these amazing different work, and their methods could be recorded in a language neutral format and then available through the online Water School, then any community could actually understand what a particular community was doing without necessarily knowing the language. So we've done one of those with Arup in the UK. And there are plans to make that even more accessible and available? How do you make information that is specific to one area in one language, language neutral, so that there's no particular language that's needed apart from your own innate sense of understanding what is being presented to you, and then using that to see whether you can use that. In addition to that, of course, there is local community radios, local community plays, local community excitement. There's WhatsApp is phenomenal. There was an article I was reading in the Harvard Business Review a few years ago that if computers don't exist, the mobile phone, an Android mobile phone, has almost become a fixture of in every part of the world, and it's often in some of the remotest communities. So Tsuamba was talking of videos and these storytellers and these small videos made by community. They go from phone to phone to phone, so they're shared like that. And so even if you don't know the people, you can have a video of a particular method of managing the landscape, and suddenly you have that and you can use that. Okay, I'm going to stop talking here because I can see a hand up. Phil Malone, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question, please?
Hi, thank you so much. It's been really exciting and good to be with you, joining the flow, as we might say. One of the things that we have found, Access Agriculture has been going for 10 years with farmer-to-farmer training videos in local languages. And I'd like to bring people's attention to a whole section on sustainable land management, which features many of the things that you showed, the half moons, the stone buns, and the Zai pits, and many other things. Also, in some schools, like in Kenya, the videos are actually part of the curriculum. So the youngsters see something, they try it in the school gardens, and then try it out with the farmers. One of the big problems is there is the haves and haves not when it comes to internet connection. We work in many places where there's no electricity, no internet, and very, very poor mobile signal. What we have there is a solar-powered smart projector which can show the videos in the local languages. So for us, we really feel it's important when you can work online, great, but sometimes in Africa especially, it's very, very expensive to use data. In South Asia, it's much cheaper. And what we need to try to do is to get rid of this divide between those who have the connectivity and those who have not. And quite often also, women are the ones who don't have access and also don't all have all the time the chance to be speaking in the language of the capital city, which is why local languages for us are really important. And anything we can do to work with you guys and assist you, we'd love to do, and to continue that conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil. Could you post your email into the chat? And we posted ours, What School Africa links, and it would be it would be our pleasure to connect and see how we can move this forward together. Thank you very much, Phil. And that goes for anybody else as well. If you're keen on joining our online sessions, the Water School Africa sessions, where communities share their methods with each other, then I've posted our email, waterschoolafricalinks@gmail.com. Send us an email and we'll put you on to the group message that goes out when there is a session happening. Yes, anybody else, any topic you would like to discuss in this sphere around you're managing water in the landscape? Would you have any questions of our panelists? Yes, Tsuamba, please go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to add that apart from using the small videos and also radio sessions, in the last days of December, we contracted the national TV station that played at least 5 of the videos we made in the villages. And about the language, everything we do is in local languages. So farmer speaks in local language, and after that, we now try to add the text in French or in English for a wider audience. So it means most things developed in the areas is done in local languages. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a really good idea, Phil, that using the videos for soundtrack for radio. Yes.
So I just wanted to jump in. There was someone asking which organizations are interested in financial support. So I think one of our aims as the Water School, in terms of linking this work, in terms of giving it more momentum, is to give it the profile that it really needs. Because if we're talking about the climate crisis, climate emergency, it all starts with water. And I think we need to be able to illustrate how communities doing this work on the ground, so that decent amounts of the climate change, climate crisis finances that have been promised go to this kind of work. And I think that's what the Water School will try and give kind of more coherence to all the work that's already going on, the really good work that's going on. And we'll start putting pressure on those kinds of organizations. Yeah.
I mean, to add to that, John, is the Water School Africa has started, and our attempt has been to grow organically. So we're not intending to be a vertical organization where we go from top down. We are spreading our wings and our reach and our connection and our network organically to communities that are already actually working on the ground. So over a period of time, we also intend to develop, have already started something called the One Pond Fund, where communities who want to create a water body, who want to create a water resource, or manage their water, and they have a method and means to do so, could put up that requirement on the One Pond Fund and get funded. Anybody who's interested in supporting organizations to create their water sources, they can come to the Water School and meet different partners, what kind of water source you want to help the communities create. So this is all being worked on and slowly will become available for communities as a community resource. Whether you want to create the water source, whether you want to put your resources into creating community resources, whether you want to volunteer with community, slowly with a focus on water, this is what the intention of the Water School Africa is. The Water School Africa will be free. Will always be free. It's knowledge, wisdom of the communities to be shared with the communities, and the communities are, of course, the world. So they'll never be charged. That knowledge will never be charged, widely available for everybody. And to support that kind of work, we say that those support with what you're able. If you're able to support with time, support with time. If you're able to support with energy, support with your work, volunteer. If you're able to support with knowledge, support with knowledge. If you're able to support with funds, support with funds. If you're able to actually work with the communities to help them build their points, whatever you feel your competence is, bring it in, and we're here in the Water School to help grow that organically, so that we really make a difference on the ground. This is not talk. We've all talked about it a lot. There's a lot of information available already in the world, but how do we actually create and increase that action on the ground? How do we make communities more able to do what they actually know to do, and to actually do it?
There was a question in the chat about the involvement of women. I don't know if Mwanda is still there and connected, because they do a lot of the water harvesting work in Majiwa that they're doing is driven by women. I don't know if you want to say anything, Emmanuel. Not sure how that connection is. Are you there, Emmanuel? Do you want to say something about the work, the involvement of women in your water harvesting work in Majiwa? Maybe there's a problem there.
So there's a question from Matt then, John. I'm interested in the benefit of belonging to networks. What is the main benefit for organizations on the ground of belonging to Water School Africa? Is it tech transfer, exposure, networking, etc.? Do you want to take that on and then?
Or maybe, I don't know, Walter, Tsuamba, Monde, what do you see as the benefit of being part of the Water School Africa? How will that benefit you? Why your organization? Maybe it's better coming from Walter. You're going to say something?
Yes, thank you for that question. I think that there are quite multiple benefits that come from being part of a network. And maybe I'll start from the solidarity aspect, where you feel you are not alone in whatever you are doing. And from that solidarity comes the motivation to do more of what you feel is important to be done. And further on from that motivation and sharing that comes with being part of the network is the sharing in terms of practices. You become a community of practice where together you improve your practices, because you are collaborating with like-minded people who are facing similar challenges. And also, most often when you are in a network, you realize that the challenges are quite common across the globe. And as a result, there's a lot that one gains from how challenges are being addressed by different members of the network. So in terms of techniques and practices, I think that that's quite important. When you are using techniques, you always, from time to time, find that the way you are doing something tends to leave some gaps sometimes. And when you are part of a network, you get to realize the gaps to identify what you don't know, and then eventually you know what you have not known up to a particular point. So there are quite a number of benefits of being part of a network, apart from also the potential of forming a consortium, sometimes collaborating in terms of resource mobilization. That's something that can also emerge from the network. So those are some of the things that come to mind in terms of benefits. Maybe other members can add on.
Okay. What I may add, can you hear me, please?
Yes, clearly.
Okay. So apart from what that have been said and that I fully support, I think it's an opportunity to see a variety of practices adapted to variety of contexts. And that helps each farmer, each community to select the practices that fits their own needs and context. And I think it's an opportunity also to put ideas together in terms of how effective the work we are doing is to convince decision makers that it's working, so that they can also invest in that. I mean, local governance, even national governance, because for we can do what we can for scaling, but once governments accept to invest more in these practices, it will go faster and higher. And sometimes we need argumentations from and experiences from abroad to convince locally decision makers. So that's what I wanted to add to that.
Anybody else? One thing I say when we started this work way back in 2011 is that this is community-driven decentralized water management. So this is a decentralized network, a network that spreads horizontally. And sometimes, most of the communities we work with are in the back of beyond. Often they have scant resources. Often they, they aren't able to move forward because there aren't enough resources, or there's not enough confidence, or there's not enough adequate knowledge. So this Water School Africa is primarily set up for on-the-ground communities to connect with each other. Educated communities and organizations are very good at moving a network forward, but how do you create an organization that is on the ground for people on the ground, and how do you enable people on the ground to plug in and get what they need from that network? So that's one of the things we are exploring and trying to do as much as possible. And how do you keep it owned by them, not owned by a particular entity that dictates what should be shared and what should not be shared. With the focus is on water, the focus is on local water resources, the focus is on how do you keep your local small water cycle healthy, and how do communities do that, and can they share that locally with all the tools of the net, the radio, the song, the drama, the sharing of WhatsApp, and all the various methods that we are now using. Can we use that to advantage of local communities on the ground? That is really essentially one of the biggest benefits of being part of the network of the Water School Africa, as I see it. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone said it. I think it depends on different groups. For example, with Mwonde have been working away on the ground, developing processes of working with communities and practices, and very water literate farmers, and they have a lot to share. So I think the Water School will give their work much more profile, and it'll be able to reach out to others. I see Zachary's just joined. Zachary, welcome. I know you had a huge problem connecting, but nice to see you. Maybe you could, one of the questions was, what is the benefit of being part of Water School Africa? How do you, why would you want RIDEP and the communities in Tharaka, Niti to be part of Water School Africa? Sorry to plunge you in, but we're nearly over, and at least you can say something.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Very clear.
Yes, I think one of the benefits, there is a lot of exchange of experiences between the partners who are taking part in this process. We have learned a lot of things happening all over the globe, in Africa, in other parts of Asia. So there's a lot of exchange of experiences from this initiative. Secondly, I think we are also trying to re-emphasize on the need to bring in the issue of water, because people have been talking about climate change, they are talking about food systems, they are talking about agriculture, but water has been given little emphasis. We need now to talk about water, because there's no food security that can be done without water. We are unhappy because water is also causing a lot of havoc in the globe. So I think we need to focus, to re-energize our efforts in focus on water management. Hello, can you hear me?
Great. Yes, no, thanks. No, heard you very well. Thank you very much for that. Good that you're at least able to join us at the end. Yeah, and I think you often say that somewhere like Tharaka Niti is struggling, but there's not a shortage of water, although the rainfall in parts of it may be low. With management, there's huge potential, but you've got to get that water productive rather than destructive.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that in Daraka, for example, there are many rivers passing through, but people don't relate water to agriculture. They talk of rain. They don't know that the rain, the water in the rivers can also be used for agriculture. So it is very, very important. We try now to create awareness about water, how water is very, very important. How water is, for example, through front water, we are losing a lot of soils, which flows into the oceans. We are also losing a lot of minerals through water. So I think water management is fundamental, and it should actually be, people should focus a lot on water management than previously, and that's why the Water School Africa is bringing up this. There are a lot of discussions about this, and we need to start doing projects around this. Not necessarily water, but also integrated program, which can touch on water, on agriculture, can talk about climate change, can also talk about climate resilience. So it is very, very important we integrate water into our discussions so that we don't just leave it out there, but water plays a very important part in food systems.
So we're almost at the end of our session. Any last burning points, suggestions, questions anybody has within the current audience? Right. So Phil says over here, Phil Malone says that all the successes we have seen are because people join together. And I can't think of a better statement with which to end this session, that it is when we work together, when we work with our communities together and they work with us and we join together as one, that we will be able to make a difference in the in the degradation of the landscapes that we see around us, or the climate, or any issue that we see and we want to make a difference in, that we join together and do it together as looking at the system as a whole and as one. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining in. Do be in touch with us if you would like to hear more about what Water School Africa is working with, or if you would like to add in your expertise to what we are offering, or if you can you'd like to see something happening through the Water School Africa, the emails are there. I think the video of this, the recording of this has been done and it will be available later, but you have our on our website as well. You have which we have posted on, I'll share the slide with you again. So if anybody wants to see some of the methods that communities have been using and presenting on the Water School Africa, they're there on waterways.world/Africa, and you can write to us on that. And do be in touch and go well, and revive the water in the landscapes of your regions. Thank you very much, everyone, and stay well.